Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, We Coach, and the global community of women in high school sports. These are two great organizations that you as an athletic director should really be a part of. So check out We Coach and the global community of women in high school sports. Now let's have a quick word from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. You've heard me say before, we've got a Sideline Interactive indoor score table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. For schools that want to improve their game day performance, highlight student athletes, excite the crowd, and increase their budget through sponsorship, you really need to check out Sideline Interactive. They offer buy now, pay later, free financing. You can spread out the payments over 2 years. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their products today. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com and check out their entire suite of platforms. Snap Connect is their multilingual family engagement platform. Snap Manage will help you design an entire website for your school. Snap Store allows you to order custom spirit gear. And of course, Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. Bottom line, it works. Our coaches have used it, and it's just fantastic. And they even have an option where you can receive your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Does anybody else offer that? I don't think so. Go to snapraise.com, check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you as an athletic director do your job better. That's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their touchscreen interactive video consoles and their templates, which allow you to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's team record boards for all the sports, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, you're going to find it at vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing. Hometown has recently acquired Ticket Spigot, and together they're going to provide an even stronger and more comprehensive digital ticketing and event management software solution. For now, go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online, scan your attendees, collect the revenue, and every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that provides hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. You'll find it all at hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. When I was a football coach, I used Huddle for years. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the smart cameras, the connectivity, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com and you're going to find the tools to help your teams, your coaches, and your athletes play at the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Go to huddle.com and join the 6 million users. Find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how ADs and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. If you're not marketing and branding your teams, your athletes, and your coaches, you're really missing out. And Gipper can show you how to do that. It's so easy, even I can do it. You don't need any design experience or any special device. Go to Gipper.com. Start creating custom content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration, but Final Forms is so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders, they can help your coaches, and for you as an athletic director, Final Forms can help you with things like eligibility, rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. If you want to find out more about how Final Forms can help you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data. It allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic directors typically only hear from that 2%, whether it's kids or parents that have an axe to grind. And sometimes they're legitimate and you can address them as an AD, but athletic surveys allows you to hear from the 98% that really love your program. And it gives you a valuable tool to share with board members, your principal, or even that squeaky wheel parent or kid that wants to gripe about something. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to find out more. At my schools, we use surveys for everything, and you should too. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD. It's a back to college episode. Very frequently we visit with people who work primarily at the college level. And I'm excited today to have Jen Gellock with us. Jen is an assistant professor of sport management at the University of Tampa. She's also the founder of a really cool program called Inward Athlete. And obviously she's going to share that with us. But Jen Gellock, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Yes, thank you so much, Jake. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, again, for our listeners, we primarily focus on high school athletic directors and coaches, but Jen, I think, really has a neat perspective on our athletic world, and the programs that she provides, I think, are an important message. So let's go and jump right in. Jen, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, sports, maybe take us up through your college years. Then we'll take a quick break and hear about your career. So what's the Jen Gellock story?
Great. So I grew up in Western Massachusetts. Always tell people closer to Albany, New York than Boston, so we don't come with Boston accents. And I grew up in kind of, I would call it a traditional middle class family, and grew up playing sports my whole life. I mean, my parents, that was their biggest encouragement. I played everything: soccer, basketball, softball. I danced competitively for 10 years.
Oh,
And when I got to high school, I became a three-sport athlete. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. And I ended up graduating most outstanding female athlete of my graduating class. However, I got that award because I was the quintessential team player. I was good at all of them, not great at one, and was getting recruited to play a few Division III programs up in the Northeast, but decided, I'm ready for something else. And me and my mom sat down and Googled good sport management programs around the country. And I ended up here at the University of Tampa, which I'll talk about in a second because my life has literally come full circle. So I'm currently an assistant professor right now at my alma mater, which is very surreal to me. And when I ended up here at 18 years old, my sport experience kind of came forward in the sense, and where Inward Athlete has been birthed from, honestly. I had no idea how to make friends without playing sports. What do people do? Sat in my dorm room freshman year. I have no idea how to make friends. So I did what felt natural, and I walked myself over to the athletic department and said, is there anything I can do? Because I really had missed being a part of a team and
right.
being around athletics. So I joined the sports information department, and worked with Tom Colby, who's still here at the University of Tampa in the athletic department, keeping stats. And he introduced me to the women's basketball coach, Tom Jesse, who's still here. And I worked with Tom Jesse for 3 years as an undergrad student, and got to be a student assistant and manager. and travel with the team, learn how to break down film. And I said it was the best job on campus because I got to build that friend group, room with all the players and have that friend, but I didn't have to work out with them unless I was on the scout team. So it was really a great experience. And from there, my coaching experience is actually backwards from a lot of people. So I started out at the college level. I started out as assistant full-time coach at St. Leo University when I graduated undergrad,
Mhm.
based on my experiences of having that undergrad breaking out film, knowing how to do scout reports, and being, I feel like a very loyal student assistant because Tom Jesse's wife is the one who hired me to talk about networking up the road at St. Leo. And after 2 years, I got my MBA in sport business. And Nikki Jesse, she had stepped down from her role as head coach, and I got to reevaluate the person they were bringing in as the new hire. Said, I will keep you around as the next assistant. I would love to keep you. Then I reevaluated things, and I just really loved speaking with the girls off the court, figuring out what they wanted to do with their lives, what was their next steps, playing at Division II. Then most of them were not going to play at the next level. So I'm looking back, I've been really good at making life pivots to become more in aligned with what my passions were. I've pivoted a lot, we'll find out here. So took a leap of faith, figured out at Division I athletics, they have people doing what I was saying. I was like, this is what I love
Right.
to do, to help athletes move through their degree paths, monitor their academic eligibility. And so that's what I did. I actually, with a master's degree in hand, applied all over the country to like pretty much part-time associate roles to get my foot in the door in college athletics. And I ended up at Central Michigan University. Fire up chips, anyone who's out there listening. And I had no idea about anything about Michigan, didn't know anyone in Michigan. And I think they kind of thought I was crazy a little bit because they hired me as a part-time role, but I like stuck around. I'm sure HR wouldn't have enjoyed this, but I was there like probably more than 40 hours a week, just learning about what that life was like to work at that level of athletics and to serve athletes in that way. But after 2 years, I reevaluated things again. And for a few reasons, I kind of felt a little bit of a misalignment with what was some of the things I was seeing at the college level of serving athletes, of keeping them eligible and priority on sport rather than academics. As someone who highly values education, I was like, I really like the education side of things more and valuing that. And I also was really interested in why some of my track and field athletes had no idea what they wanted to do when they were done as being college athletes. And my knowledge of track and field is limited, but I was like, if you're not running at Oregon or Texas, I'm not sure you're going to be like running at the next level based on timestamps and everything. So reevaluated everything again and just really stars aligned. I wasn't ready to go back and get my PhD. I was just starting to inquire about it. And I kind of connected with my now mentor, who was my dissertation chair, Dr. Brendan Dwyer at Virginia Commonwealth University, who had a PhD program in sport leadership. And went back to start thinking about some of these questions: athletic identity, leadership in athletes, and ended up going full time into my PhD there from 2016 to 2019 and graduated, and then became a full-time assistant professor. And along the way, when I was at Michigan and Richmond and my first job at University of North Alabama, I say my coaching career kind of went backwards. Because I started at the college level. When I was in Michigan, I helped coach at AAU and a high school level of girls basketball. And then I helped coach fifth grade girls when I was in fifth grade girls basketball when I was in Alabama, and then like 9-year-old boys soccer. So I have kind of done it all, and it brings me back here to the University of Tampa, where I'm now an assistant professor of sport management, taking another life pivot and about to transition full-time into inward athlete and some of these entrepreneurial pursuits that have been in my heart for a very long time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a great roadmap of the experiences that you've gleaned that have led you to this point. And I want to go all the way back to, when you were an undergraduate, you weren't involved in sports, but you loved at the college level, but you loved the sport experience, and you went down, you made that decision and inquired, hey, is there anything I can do? And getting involved in all of those different activities, working with the teams, you mentioned breaking down film, the travel, I'm sure there was setting up for events and things like that. Those are hugely important experiences, not just for the hands-on, but making connections and working with people and building your resume. 100 years ago, when I was an undergraduate student, I was playing football, and I was on the track team, but I was a PE major. They didn't have sport management back then. But I did that same thing. I was involved with the college intramural program and, home event management and things like that. And 25 years later, when I became an AD, those experiences really paid off. And so the takeaway for me, and hopefully for listeners, is get involved, step out,
Yeah.
do things, volunteer. They're going to pay dividends far beyond what you're getting initially, which, again, Jen, for your case, you were just trying to make some friends.
Yeah, and I always tell my students, athletes, and clients today who I work with that every time I had a little inkling that I might be interested in this, I've always said yes. And it just helped clarify my path forward. Did I not like this? What did I like about this? And no matter what, it really just always helped me, whether a good experience or bad experience. I always met someone or I always acquired a new skill that just help clarify things of where I was headed. Yes. Yeah.
Great stuff. For our listeners, we're visiting today with Jen Gellock, Dr. Jen Gellock. She's an assistant professor of sport management at the University of Tampa, also the founder of Inward Athlete, which we're going to hear about a little bit later. We're going to take our first break. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Come on, Jay. Hey, we want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. You've heard me mention that we've got a Sideline Interactive score table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, and you can schedule a live web demonstration of their tables and boards and see them in action. That's sidelineinteractive.com. They not only generate income for your department, but they create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. Sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com, that's snapraise.com, and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you as an athletic director do your job better. Snap Connect is their multilingual family engagement platform. Snap Manage will help you design an entire website for your school. Snap Store, you can order custom spirit gear for everybody in your program. And Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. We've used it with great success. It flat out works, and it'll work for you too. They even have a program where you can receive your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Does anyone else offer that? I don't think so. Go to snapraise.com, check out their entire platform and their fundraiser. That's snapraise.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're visiting today with Dr. Jen Gellock, currently at the University of Tampa. Jen, we always like to have our guests share some of the mentors that they've had. None of us get to where we're at on our own. The expression that I always use is, I still hear those voices in my head of my mentors. Do you have any voices that you hear?
Yes. The first mentor I'd like to bring up is someone who you always think about people and they don't even know you're thinking about them. And he was my fifth grade basketball coach back in the day. His name was Jim Carrington, back where I grew up in Westfield, Massachusetts. And he was one of the first coaches that like saw me. I think that's really important in youth sports and empowered me. I became a very good shooter. It's actually one of the only skills that I acquired. It's not a dribbler, not a good passer, but I became a very good shooter. And at fifth grade, he really saw that potential in me. And I remember he sent me an email in fifth grade. That's when we had like AOL dial up too. Just like really acknowledging the hard work I had put in, how much he saw that I was going to progress throughout my middle school career when I got to high school. And I think that really pushed me to become the shooter that I became, and the one to go to like in high school when you needed the game winning three, them drawing up plays. And I really attribute that to him and youth sports. And I do see somewhere down the line, Inward Athlete having some youth sport resources because of such a crucial age of building confidence and empowerment during that time of youth athletes' lives. The second mentor I would like to mention is actually my sister. My sister's 3.5 years older than me, and we are actually completely different. She has been called, quote unquote, the real doctor of our family. She is a family physician, and she is all left brained, logical, not many emotions, and can just get things done. And I always followed in her footpath. Um, I am the complete opposite. I am a highly sensitive and emotional, creative, innovative person. But without her guidance, I'm not sure I would have pushed myself as far as I have. But we'll come to why that also was maybe a negative in a little bit as well. But she really paved the way for me. During my doctorate, I've had three amazing mentors: Dr. Brendan Dwyer, Carrie LaCrum, and Greg Greenhall. And I think once I got to my PhD, they were people who really just saw my potential. I battled imposter syndrome my whole 20s. And these, I think when someone mirrors back to you the potential and inevitable success that you can have as an individual, all three of them were able to like, I didn't think I could write a dissertation. I got my undergrad also in physical education. I didn't end up graduating in sport management. So when you said that, it kind of was like I was a PE major as well, and then I got my MBA in sport business. I had no idea how to write a dissertation. It was all practical kind of case study stuff, and they really just kind of supported me wholeheartedly throughout that whole journey and exposed me to experience I had no idea that I was even interested. And the last mentor I wanted to mention is a beautiful human who I've worked with over the last year of my life to build Inward Athlete, and his name is Aaron Rose. He is a transformational mentor and coach who has a program called God is My Boss. And I entered his program and sought his mentorship one on one because I was like, I want to build Inward Athlete from what I call a conscious, sustainable, and resourceful place. I don't want to just build a business. I want to build a business and know that it has a really deep foundation of my values. And he has been a human who has helped me unblock fears, unblock limiting beliefs, and really just getting me clear on who I am and how I want to build a conscious building a business moving forward. And I just can't thank him enough as well. Who has also saw this creative and innovative part of myself that has just allowed me to really lean into that more. It's been hard for me to accept that about myself most of my 20s.
Well, again, I just always love to hear the stories, how people have impacted, each of our lives. And it's great that you're still in touch with, so many of them. Again, very cool stuff. Let's talk a little bit about Inward Athlete. Again, you've been part of the faculty at the University of Tampa, but now you're getting ready, and you've founded Inward Athlete, but now it sounds like you're getting ready to jump in, full time with that. Tell our listeners a little bit about Inward Athlete, maybe the idea behind it, and then we'll take another break, but then we're going to take a deeper dive into all the things that it provides. So what's the Inward Athlete story?
Yeah, so Inward Athlete started, I would say, back when I was at the University of Tampa, when I was talking about my story about sitting in my freshman year dorm and not knowing how to make friends. I realized, I didn't realize this at the time, but in retrospect, what was happening is I was very highly identified with my athlete role, wanting to be an athlete and making friends in my athlete role and deeming my success through my sport experiences. And part of Inward Athlete has been birthed from that sense of I wish someone, uh, as I was exiting being a competitive athlete, had helped me re-identify who I was, and start to expose me to different passions or values that I didn't even know existed outside my athlete role. And so throughout my whole 20s, because I didn't go through that process, now I've always been a personal development guru and seeker, always going to leadership stuff, but it never really clicked for me. I always still operated from someone tell me who I am. As a high achiever, I want to be the best and I want to do it all. And I ended up operating from that place for so long, all of my 20s, I'm 33 now. I ended up burning out my nervous system, working in college athletics to another college athletics role, which is just 24/7 work culture. Like I said, I was pushing more 40 hours a week as a part-time role. That was all my own choice, but I just thought that's how you operate in the world. You grind it out, you hustle, and you get it done. And then I did the same thing in grad school. Finished my PhD in 3 years, which was a lot of classes and dissertation and writing and publishing. And by the time I got to the University of North Alabama, which is my first job out of my doctorate, that was the year of going into 2020. And as we all know, a lot of things happened in 2020, namely our whole world kind of shut down. And when our world shut down, my body didn't know how to relax and shut down with it. And I don't think I'm alone in like having a lot of physiological reactions to all what was happening in the world during the pandemic. And during that summer, I had a few panic attacks that came out of nowhere. And I like to think I was like, because of a high perfectionist personality and achievement, I was operating from like a chronic stress period my whole life. And then it just manifested itself like, I cannot hold this anymore. I can't go at this pace that I'm going at. So I attribute a lot of that to operating from a very athletic mindset. And I wish someone had taught me how to separate the two. You don't always have to operate from that when you're not on the field or you're not in the playing field. And when you transition into life after sport, there's a new way we can do things. And that's what I love to help athletes with, to understand, first of all, who is like this truest version of myself. The mission of Inward Athlete is to assist former athletes shift into alignment with their authentic selves and empower them to step into worthy expansion in all areas of their life after sport. So to unpack that a little bit, I really help athletes. Let's identify who you are, your values, underneath any labels. And then from that place, build some confidence and to act from that place so that you can take what I call aligned action to live a life that is more integrated and balanced than maybe you were operating as an athlete, because we're all different and it looks different for everyone as well. So just because I personally need a lot more rest now than I did in the past, and I honor that, someone could still go like their athlete self. And we really try to unpack that and help athletes honor that part of themselves.
Very cool. And again, I've done a little bit of looking and browsing about the program. Excited to take a little bit deeper dive when we come back. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Dr. Jen Gellock, assistant professor at the University of Tampa, founder of Inward Athlete. We're going to hear a lot more about that when we come back. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles and their variety of templates that are going to help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and let their professionals set you up with all the services that they can provide. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. You're going to find out how to set up and sell your tickets online. They will also show you how to scan the attendees that come to the games and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you'll have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, your school plays and concerts, even graduation. You'll find it all at hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Dr. Jen Gellock, the founder of Inward Athlete. Jen, once again, you and I have talked a little bit about the program, but I want you to talk to that, cynical athletic director that's, sitting there, whether it's in Florida or Nebraska or wherever. Why should they care about this? And listeners, you should care. Maybe talk about some of the different things that would happen when you're working with an athlete or a team or even an athletic director with the Inward Athlete program.
Yeah. So let me put on my research hat for a second. I have all these different hats now. I was looking at the research, and there's still very minimal research out there right now compared to, we're hearing a lot of personal stories in the news of athletes disclosing their mental health struggles and moving through their transitions and needing support. We see it in the news every day. And athletes specifically, again, are operating from this high self achievement, success, measuring themselves against a scoreboard, measuring themselves against a stat sheet for so many years of their lives. And when they transition into life after sport, we call it identity foreclosure, meaning we built an identity so high with something outside of ourselves, and we haven't explored all these other parts that we might be interested in, or even know ourselves on a level of more than being just an athlete. And when athletes do that, we have seen that, yes, they will have some sort of, they'll all go through the transition period. And if athletes have that high identity foreclosure, will struggle with some mental health, anxiety, and depression. And I truly think that with more research, they actually also will struggle with some physiological responses of having to transition to a new lifestyle, of adapting to a new training and lifestyle program, eating differently, who their community is, which was my big thing. Like, how do you identify a community outside your team? So those are why athletic directors should really care, is because it really does come down to an individual's overall, what I call holistic health, mind, body, and spirit, that if we don't have that support system moving through, we could unfortunately, at the end of the day, lose some athletes. And we are seeing ourselves lose a lot of people in their younger teens right now to mental health struggles. And we want to support them as best we can. And going through a life transition is not easy. And going through your athletic identity transition is specifically an even more specific transition that I think needs more support out there.
You and I were talking during the break, and you hear about athlete transition so much from professional athletes, whether it's, the NFL or the WNBA, people's athletic careers end at the professional level and they're back, or they're maybe for the first time entering the real world. There's far more high school student athletes whose athletic experience ends, that competitive high school experience ends. And so obviously, there are people that can benefit from the services you provide. Can you, laser in and share a little bit about, maybe some of the things that, you currently do with student athletes that would resonate with our listeners out there?
Yes. So the first thing is, so actually, this is the first year of my business, right? So I'm still in kind of this creator, flexible adaptability mode. but I do have a few services that I think would be beneficial to the listeners. The first one is I love to be in person doing hands-on work with athletes. Like that is my number one as a teacher, right? As a professor, I love to be in front of someone doing experiential learning. And there's a lot of experiential learning that happens when, I call them like leadership activation sessions. I've currently worked with college athletes, coming and helping them go through what I call this inward athlete roadmap. So that can be in person, can work with me, bring me in as a consultant, or right now I am building a self-study program that walks athletes through these kind of six, I would call them modules, phases. I just kind of want to talk about those a little bit. So the first one would be like honoring your athletic career. Because I think we do the end of the year team banquet very good. We give out the trophies or the awards, but very specifically, athletes don't go through that deep emotional process to process their grief and their gratitude for their athletic experience in a deep way. So I walk athletes through that. How to identify their true self is kind of the second phase. Like, what are we underneath any labels? What are our values? What are our priorities? Then from there, we develop like your own personal mission statement to live by, because that why or that intention by what you do every day helps really get in underneath that label of something that you're attached to, like a identity of being an athlete. Then help athletes really claim those characteristics. And this is really important, the transferable skills that athletes build, like the time management, the leadership, the all the different type of roles, being the vocal leader, the someone that had the interpersonal skills. Like how do you communicate those in your next phase of life, like on a resume or a cover letter or a future employer? And then bringing awareness to all the different lifestyle shifts you're about to go through before you go through them is what I would love to help athletes with. In terms of, we talked about it, like you're going to be eating differently, training differently, you're going to have new friends. And then lastly, like how do you take an aligned action from all of this awareness, this new awareness that you have? So it's a deeply transformational program. Right now I'm building it so an athlete can take it via self-study, which should come out in April. But also I'm going to be welcoming in kind of this first cohort of athletes to come with me through personal coaching, where it's going to be live for 6 weeks. And we'll meet once a week for 6 weeks, beginning in April through May, to catch those spring athletes who are graduating. And there will be more information on that to come. And then lastly, I do one-on-one mentorship or leadership activation sessions, working with someone on an individual level. And my ideal person for that is that it can be an athlete or a non-athlete, maybe even an athletic director out there who's like resonating with what I'm saying. And they're like, I would really like to identify who I am a little bit more in my mission, what I'm here to do. Maybe I'm here to transform what athletics is looking right now, and doing it in a different way and honoring that. And I help support and guide people through that process of how to bring that new vision or project that they're trying to birth into the world to life. So those are different ways to kind of work with me right now. To get, to get in touch with me, I have a website called www.inwardathlete.com. And on that, it has information about that inward athlete roadmap, like that 6 phases journey I just talked about. Also how to get in contact with me to like work with me one-on-one. And I'm building something for like an inquiry if you wanted to bring me in to work with your team specifically, how to do that as well. Obviously this semester I have limited, I'm trying to build my calendar now. So if anyone's listening to this and you are interested in, I don't know when this will come out, but I would love to find out more about your program, how to work together. And my schedule will open up a little bit more. That's why I'm kind of transitioning out of academia, so I can really serve in this new way.
No, that's great. I'm glad you gave out the contact information. We'll do that again at the end of the podcast. And Dr. Gellock is also on LinkedIn if you want to try to connect that way. That's how we connected. So very, very cool stuff. And again, listeners, I really encourage you to reach out. This is something that, every single one of us, we have student athletes that are graduating from our high schools every single year, and they had a great experience, but that's also going to be the end of their competitive, sport experience. So again, sounds like a great, great program, even if it's just a one-time meeting to help our student athletes before they leave our care. Again, our guest today is Dr. Jen Gellock. Inward Athlete is her program. We're going to take another break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Huddle for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. You can join the over 200,000 teams across 40 different sports that use Huddle to help their athletes, their coaches, and their teams perform better. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle's got the tools to help your teams, coaches, and athletes perform at the highest level. And if you go to huddle.com, you're going to find a professional grade solution for the challenges that we all face. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and find out how your school can become a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Branding and marketing is where it's at, and Gipper can show you how to do it. It's so easy, even I can do it. Use our podcast code ADPOD10 and you'll get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Dr. Gellock, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You know, you are a high school athlete. You've worked at a number of different colleges, you know, Division III through Division I. What are some initiatives or some organizational leadership things that you have seen, or maybe even that you do within your Inward Athlete, that you would consider best practices that you can share with our listeners?
Sure. So I love the topic of leadership. It is something that I have specifically taught, and I've taught a few coaching classes as well when I was at the University of North Alabama, the psychology of coaching and foundations of coaching at both University of North Alabama and my alma mater, VCU, when I was there as a grad student. The first thing I have learned that I think is one of the most important things, and I think our culture is starting to shift this way in terms of leadership, is authentic leadership, a leader who leads from a place of really deeply knowing themselves and being vulnerable enough to share that with others. I think this generation, I've learned this from my students and from just working with athletes. When I bring my whole self forward, I'm willing them to tell them my stories and how I'm a human as well. And I make mistakes and I don't know everything. I think that this generation really resonates with that, and they can pick up on if you're being inauthentic very quickly. I do think that's why my students enjoy having me in classes, why my story resonates when I talk about Inward Athlete, and that's why um, authentic self is part of Inward Athlete's mission. So I can empower athletes in the next generation to live from that place of authenticity because they are our next leaders. The second thing I would say is this idea about transformational leadership. Like, so there's a lot of different leadership theories out there, but I really like kind of this transformational leadership lens that we can look through in terms of it's more than just like saying the X's and O's when you step into a room. It's really just really thinking about that student or that athlete first and how to bring forward like a lens of self-inquiry and curiosity to help them figure out the problems. Take that athlete or that student through a transformational experience by letting them figure out the problem, letting them. Some of the best coaches I worked for really put athletes in those like high pressure situations and were like, what would you do here? What do we need to do here? Rather than telling so much, really letting that experience kind of let's figure it out together. And I'm going to stimulate you kind of your curiosity and how to problem solve that. Um, and yeah, those are the top two that come to mind in terms of like leadership and managing, is really leading from that place of authenticity and then like really pulling athletes through this transformational experience, which I really think is what inward athlete is all about as well. You come in as one person and you're going to leave another. And then the third part, I guess I would add another part, is really specifically for athletic directors, is understanding the transferable skills. If nothing else, all those skills that athletes build during their athletic career. I wish someone taught me, oh, this way to build team and culture and teamwork that can be transferred into all area of your life. And how do you utilize those skills? How do you utilize time management when you get up for a 6 a.m. workout, you're back again after school at 2 p.m.? How do you transfer that to be successful in college when you're taking classes? So I really think transferable skills as well as athletes is like probably that third thing that I would really encourage leaders to focus on as well, that things are transferable to all areas of our life, especially from athletics.
Oh no, absolutely. Employers are looking for people that, can work in a team, that have demonstrated, you know, take it from the list: hard work, dedication,
Yeah.
sacrifice, commitment, loyalty, all those things. I told you I was putting you on the spot. I'm going to take it one step further. Can you pull out, and you don't necessarily have to name them, but can you pull out a leader, somebody you worked with or worked for, that just really personified, that rainbow of skills? Any
Mm.
one or two people stick out for you?
Yeah, I guess the first one that comes to mind is one of my mentors at VCU. Her name is Dr. Carrie LaCrum. She is the executive director of the Center for Sport Leadership at VCU, and she is someone I deeply admire. She taught us the sport leadership class that really taught me a lot of these different ways to view leadership, which I like a word that is called embodying her own type of leadership, like a leader who she really like understands her own values, her own strengths, and what she's good at, and then embodies them, like carries them out and lives them day to day. And she's someone I just deeply admire as a female perspective as well. Moving in a very male dominated world of athletics. She is someone who really kind of, the see it to believe it really has empowered me to kind of step into this new version of being a female leader myself. So I really would love to thank her, especially I'll send her this so she can listen to it.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. We can do that easily. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
The next person that comes to mind is probably I mentioned one of my mentors, Aaron Rose, who has walked me through this process of, I think someone can walk you through a process of being yourself, connecting back to your truth and how to bring your vision to life when they, again, that word embodiment I really love, are walking the walk and talking the talk. They're not telling you how to do it. They're helping you understand and be curious about your own process and then empowering you from that place. And he is someone who has like blown my mind about, like, you want to be like them because you're like, you resonate so much, but then they turn it on you and be like, no, 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 like, you're a different person, you have a unique skill set, like, how are you going to do it? So he's someone who's really helped pull me through that process.
Oh, yeah, very cool. Thanks so much for sharing. I know, like I said, I put you on the spot, but you did a great job. For our listeners, our guest today is Dr. Jen Gellock. A lot of experience in the world of athletics at the college level. Currently assistant professor at the University of Tampa sport management program. She's the founder of Inward Athlete. We'll give out that contact information after our next segment, but let's take another quick break. We'll be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in forms and registration, but they are so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, and they have reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can help your coaches with communication and attendance. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and get started with Final Forms. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Jen, you and I were talking during the break, and you mentioned, a subject that's very important to you. Can you share that with our listeners? Because I think it's something that they should hear as well.
Yeah. So over the last few years, since I talked a little bit about my story about kind of having these panic attacks and a very dysregulated nervous system, I've been very passionate about researching that in my own time and really understanding this mind body connection that we all have. I think sometimes we cut off parts of ourselves, specifically as athletes. We're always talking about mindset, and this positive and confidence belief. And I have found that without feeling safe in our bodies and our nervous system, that mind body connection is really, really crucial. For example, I have been learning about these emotions that we're processing. Maybe there's fear coming up. Maybe there's some limiting beliefs coming up. That sends a message to our brain that kind of continues to loop in this pattern. So that's why our mind body connection is so important. And at the end of the day, my nervous system was so dysregulated. I was having all these chronic stress emotions tied to it because of this low self worth that I had all of my 20s. And you would think as an athlete, I would be this confident, striving person, but I realized I was still playing from measuring myself against a scoreboard. How many A's could I get? How many publications could I get? And at the end of the day, it was really having this emotional reaction in my body, and no one ever taught me how to process my emotions. I grew up in a family that kind of was like, it's not okay to cry kind of family, which I know a lot of athletes can resonate with as well. And I do think, as you asked me another question, would you want to talk about what makes an athlete tough? Or what can athletic directors and coaches do to build toughness? And this might sound counterintuitive, but I think it's really helping them process their emotions and building their self-esteem to then process their emotions, get it out of there. What are they fearful of? What are their limiting beliefs? Let that be okay, hold space for that. And then that sends positive thoughts to their brain that then they can move forward to the next level. And I have really found that to be true, that every time I process my emotion of fear or limiting belief, I then I'm really interested in neural reprogramming of our belief systems as well, which we won't get too far into that. But it really then sends another different signal to our brain that we can then create a new neural pathway or belief and pattern to operate from. So I think it might be a missing link for a lot of coaches out there. Don't want to bypass the emotions and say, just tough it out. Toughing it out actually means maybe you need to cry about it or go over there and take some deep breaths and then come back and let's talk about it. And I really found that it could be a winning key piece to creating someone's toughness.
Yeah, you're so right. And again, the story that I typically share is, when I was in high school, our coaches would say, come on, you got to be tough, or come on, you got to suck it up. And I think we kind of knew what they meant. But in the many years since I was a high school athlete, we figured out much better ways to coach and communicate and kind of
Mm-hmm.
tap into that relational aspect of coaching. I think our coaches cared for us, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
something that they did back then. So
Exactly.
the other component, and you alluded to it, is that kids today, whether they're high school kids or college kids or adult kids, it's such a different world than what I went through as a high school athlete in the early
Mm-hmm.
70s and a college athlete in the late 70s. And so we have no idea compared to the current generation.
Yep.
Great stuff. Boy, this has been so cool spending some time with you, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox, and you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. But we're going to take a quick break and hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor our AD Toolbox segment. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Dr. Jen Gellock is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic directors typically only hear from that 2% of student athletes or parents who have a gripe. And those are important things to hear about because sometimes they can help you make important adjustments to your program. But athletic surveys allows you to hear from that 98% that really love your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool when you're talking to your boss or your school board or that squeaky wheel parent to demonstrate, hey, 98% of our parents really love this coach, program, etc. So again, we encourage you to go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to find out more. You've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes or your parents, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We have been visiting with a really cool guest, Dr. Jen Gellock. She's at the University of Tampa Sports Management, been in a number of different colleges around the country. Also the founder of Inward Athlete, Athlete Transition Program. And she shared a lot about that. But right now, I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in their toolbox. So, Dr. Jen Gellock, what 3 items are going to go into your athletic director toolbox?
All right, so all 3 of my things are going to be some intangible, philosophical tools to carry with you. The first one, I was just over here making sure I credited the right person. I watched this webinar one time on Athletic Director U, which is kind of one of my favorite resources to it kind of sounds like yours, to find some college athletics news and what athletic directors are up to at the college level. And I watched a webinar with Jim Knowlton from Cal, the AD there, talk about when he was hired there, he implemented 90 days of listening as a leader. He went to every department, every coach, sat down and had them present to them what they were up to and what their needs were. Like hearing directly from his staff and his coaches and the athletes, I believe he sat down with, as well as one of the constituent groups, to figure out, let them tell you who they are. They've been there a lot longer, and then you get buy-in also from all of your staff that you're leading, that you really care about them, and you should be doing it because you care about them as well. And then you can make some implemented changes from that standpoint, and having more information, and you're building relationships as well with the people you're serving. The second thing I would really consider is not only do you want to live the mission, right, of your athletic department and make sure that's really strong in the values when you're hired there. Make sure there's values and a mission statement that you're leading, and to reevaluate and make sure they align with your own. Go through your own process of identifying your own values and your own mission, and how can you live in both of those areas, because you want to make sure they're aligned so you can be happy and fulfilled in your job, especially as a leader serving a lot of people. That's really important. And the last thing I would put in your toolbox is, of course, Inward Athlete, in terms of connecting with me, even that's just connecting with me via LinkedIn, or you think we would be a good fit to maybe, I'm in Florida, but I am willing to travel if you want me to come speak to your athletes or your athletic department, what that might look like. and hopefully get connected to find out more about how could a whole athletic department get on board with getting all of your athletes through that inward athlete roadmap that I built inward athlete roadmap, this course, those 6 modules from a place. What would I want every athlete to know and to go through if they were retiring? And that's how I'm building inward athlete, is like, what do I need to build right now? Because it can be overwhelming to build a business. I have so many ideas, but this is the thing that if I wanted every athlete to know something or go through something, this is the thing. So those are my 3 things for new ADs.
Wow, great stuff. And again, the alignment portion on a small level and on a macro level, just so critical. And I love the way you got inward athlete in there. I think it's something that is needed and is probably going to become much more prevalent, in the coming years. Great stuff. Jen, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, find out more about you and your program, and listeners, I really think you should. What's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the first way was go to visit my website at inwardathlete.com. And there's a contact page on there for me, and you can learn a little bit more about me and some of the programs. And the second was we have an Instagram page, Inward Athlete. That is a good way to get connected with an inward athlete. I am working with a team of my undergrads this semester to help really build more content to serve athletes specifically through that platform, provide them with some more information about moving through transition. So the end user there will be the athletes through that Instagram page, but that's a good follow as well. And also to tell your athletes, it's a good resource to have as well. But yeah, those are the 2 ways. Instagram right now, and LinkedIn is a good way to connect with me as well. I'm also on Twitter, but yeah, any of the social media ways, I'll probably reach out to you. And then going through my website, Inward Athlete, and it's also, you can send me an email at inwardathlete@gmail.com. So it's all pretty consistent in terms of the handles and how to reach out.
Well, Dr. Jen Gellock, thanks so much for being on the Educational AD podcast, and all the best moving forward here in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, and wishing all the best to all the spring sports about to get rolling here in 2023.
It's that favorite time for athletic directors, that spring sports season.
Exactly.
For our listeners, we take every single interview that we do and we upload the video to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. One more time, we appreciate you listening today. Want to give a shout out to our partners, We Coach, and the global community of women in high school sports, and all of our sponsors. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.